Morning, everybody. Just like to cover the secret to success lies not in the absence of complaints, but in how you deal with the complaints that come your way. Before we answer a complaint, we do need to visit a few foundations regarding the complaints. But before I go into that, there's a very good saying that I was told: do not get upset with people or situations. Both are powerless without your reactions. So when you are dealing with these complaints, always keep your peace. Once you start giving your reactions and all of that, you do lose control, but we will touch on that a little bit later. Today, I'd like to cover the effect that complaints have. Complaints have a follow-on effect. With the persons encountering both parties, we are elevated, we lash out to the next weakest link after leaving the situation, in the situation. So it's not just yourself and the complainant that are affected by this. Also, the persons in the vicinity of the situation. So you've got a whirlwind of emotions that are going through you, and you can feel them post-conflict, which is then further projected. And then you go onto their nucleus, and those people then go forth with their negative emotions. So there is a substantial amount of after effect on a complaint. So the keys are, when dealing with complaints, put your emotions aside. Misinterpretation of a constructive criticism could go very wrong. We all speak and portray differently. So you could take something from somebody's mannerisms as something absolutely horrid when they are just trying to give you a bit of constructive criticism. So have a bit of tolerance when you are listening to these things. Culture, misunderstanding could explode a simple, sweet gesture. So they could be well intended on these things, but you take it as an absolute stab because it is involved in a complaint. So you just need to dissect that. Listen twice as hard as you speak. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Your job is to put out the fire rather than add to it. So yes, you may be right. The consumer may, or your complainant may be completely wrong. However, don't go into it until you are armed with the facts and the correct responses on these things. There is an issue. So that is why there is a complaint. There is an issue. Do not take it personally. Once we walk with the weight of others' opinions, we become immobile. So you are walking with all of these things weighted on you, and especially if you are in the complaints division. I myself, as the National Complaints Administrator, I get a lot of complaints. Some of them will turn into personal attacks, but you cannot walk with that weight on your shoulders because you will become immobile. Empathy. You need to remember to thank a consumer or a complainant for their complaint. And it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but like Steve just touched on before the session, you know what? A complaint can actually grow your business. So you need to kill them with kindness and calmly reply, telling them that you appreciate them for taking the time to raise their concern. A calm voice against thunder often soothes even the most volatile person. Much like a whisper, when you are, you can even try the exercise at home. When you're talking to somebody and you start whispering to them, they will reply in a whisper. And you both look at each other and say, well, why are we whispering? So there is science, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but use that soft voice. Don't lose your peace and just remain calm and in control of the situation. Do not ever challenge a volatile complainant. You will only breed negativity. You will only elevate them, even if they are wrong and you are armed with all the facts. Calm it down and approach it at an absolute peaceful level. You need to acknowledge what they are saying. This is for you to sift out and find out what the actual complaint is. So we're going to cover it a little bit later in the session, but you need to write down and replay to them what they have said, because then it shows your understanding, it shows that you are listening, and it shows that you are looking for a solution. So in the back of their mind, they're going to be, okay, well, this guy is actually, or girl or guy is actually listening. They are acknowledging me and they are understanding what my complaint is. And then when it comes to the resolution of that complaint, you are not going to be giving them the incorrect answers as well. We're going to go to the resolution of the complaints. You need to always remember to be realistic. Overextending your promises, not only can this prejudice your business, but the expectation can cause conflict and confusion and complaints to come. So if you offer a gold Mercedes for a tiny complaint, and word of mouth spreads faster than any marketing tool, the next consumer or complainant is going to want that same gold Mercedes. Don't overextend on your promises. Be realistic. Understand what you can and cannot do. And don't go into other avenues when you cannot maintain it going forward. You need to be flexible. An arrogant stance will lose your customer and spread that same amazing marketing tool, the word of mouth. So there may be alternate options to explore to resolve the complaint, but be flexible as far as you can within your business. There's amazing webinars called The Cost of Being in Business, and those will help you analyze what you can and cannot bring into your resolutions, and have in your cost of being in business, have in there a section for complaints and donations, so that you can realistically look at what your company can agree and not agree to. You need to always protect your brand. Offering to make good. There was one that we learned in law school about how Pick and Pay did an entire recall of all of their products because of a threat. It was an email threat or a letter threat. It wasn't an actual threat. It was a possibility. And what they did was they just wiped out the entire stock and said, everybody, here's our resolution. So protecting your brand and offering to make good. They do the recalls to let their customers know that they care. There's no decline in sales because the customers find comfort in their protection, much the same as employee errors. To err is human, so understand that your employees do have their jobs and your best interests at heart, but sometimes they do make mistakes. You can acknowledge their error and offer to make good, but obviously being within your realistic means. The understanding. To help a consumer understand and let them know what you can and cannot do, and that your intent is to apologize and move forward with the interests of assisting them, will let them feel that protection of your company, your organization, or whichever aspect you're coming from. You let them understand that you are willing to apologize, you're willing to address this issue, and this is what you can and cannot do. Often they'll place unrealistic expectations on you, and just being open and honest and upfront about what you will not be able to do will often soften the blow when they have that expectation of the outcome. You also need to assist them in understanding and assist your brand protection in reiterating changed behavior. An apology is just words. Like I explained to a few people, throwing a plate, everybody knows the sentiments of throwing a plate on the floor. It breaks. Saying sorry does not fix the plate. But if you go a step further than that, it's actions that will put the plate back together. So getting the glue, or like in Japan, getting the gold and making it an even better plate, that will show your changed behavior. You are working towards ensuring that this does not reoccur, and your consumer will remain a customer of yours if you are willing to go that extra mile. Complaints and closure. Complaints matter. They are a critical part to any business. You need to ensure that you do not just sweep them under the rug and hope that they're going to go away, because they're just going to fester. We have seen this. Some people will give it up, but do not ever put yourself in the position where you are guessing if a complaint is going to come back and bite you, because when it does, it's going to come back with legal teeth, and you've got a lot more on your plate than you had in the first place. So deal with it as it comes. We were in a stress management workshop, and one of the key things that the speaker delivered was, first things first. Always deal with the loudest first, and then move on to the other little ones after that. So following up on complaints, knowing that it is still within the operations of the company further eases the complainant that you are ethical and you are genuine about resolving the conflict. This again sits in their mind, and they will reiterate this to people when they promote your services to other people. They go, well, I did have a complaint with this person, but they did timeously and effectively resolve my complaint, and that's when it comes to a fact of, we all make mistakes and these things happen. But if you're going to ignore, you're not going to follow up, you're not going to resolve it, then it's, I had a complaint with these guys and they were shocking and they told me to do this, that, and the next thing. So following up further just reiterates all that hard work that you've done. Not everyone can be happy. Not everyone is happy. Understand that 10% of consumers will always complain. Stick to your procedures and ensure that you have the facts to back up your sterling support. You cannot go rushing into answering the complaint straight away, because you can be without some of the facts. You can slip up. You can be heated. So sometimes you are going to deal with that 1 in 10 person that is not going to listen to your story. So calming the situation, which we'll go into just now, will assist you in moving forward. Just another very pertinent point that I have been blessed with knowing. It's a popular meme on the internet at the moment. I think Taylor Swift is one of the people that's claiming it. If you are yelling or abusive, you have lost control of the situation. This cannot be more true. Once a person starts elevating, they have lost the control. Same if you have children or have been in an argument before. You will see as soon as you start losing control of the argument, you will find yourself elevating and shouting or becoming nasty and abusive. So attempt at every point not to raise your voice. Remain calm. Do your breathing exercises, rub your earlobes, whatever works for you, but do not allow your peace to be moved. Do not allow the complainant to get under your skin. And when they are elevated and they have lost control of the conversation and become abusive, try and empathize with them, try and calm them. And if you cannot, then just say, listen, I will phone you back in, say, 10 minutes. Do not patronize them by saying, once you have calmed down, say, look, I do have an urgent matter. Your matter is very urgent to me, but I do have a very urgent matter that I will phone you back in 10 minutes, or come up with an absolutely plausible reason as to why you would like to end that call temporarily and return to it at a next state. Complaints that are in written form can be bittersweet. While you are only dealing with what is in front of you, you must also deal with what is in front of you. To touch on the without prejudice, ensuring that you open without prejudice to protect yourself should the responses go to litigation is a very good idea. However, if you have got monetary admissions, this will be excluded in the without prejudice rule. So just from a legal perspective, including without prejudice is great, but if you do have let's say an admission of owing money for a certain amount, the without prejudice rule does not apply to that. So just be wary of including that when it comes to monetary admissions. Stick to the facts. Do not detract from the statements. Do not go talking in circles and going onto other aspects and avenues of the complaint, bringing up old bones. Just stick to what's in front of you. Refrain from allegations. This is a very, very, very important one. I have seen it in many of the complaints that we have come across. You need to refrain from assumptions and allegations. For each statement, there must be purpose for its inclusion in your response. So when you are responding, you are only dealing with what you need and what the purpose is and an outcome of that sentence. An assumption, if absolutely necessary, must be stated as just that and the opinion of the writer. So especially when you're talking on behalf of a company, if you are in a larger firm, a larger company or business, You need to make sure that your assumptions and opinions are stated as yours and not of your business or whatever. But as far as possible, and I cannot beat this drum hard enough, do not put assumptions and allegations into any of your correspondence, even when it comes to email correspondence. So email correspondence can be going through on a thread between certain parties, and then you want to forward that onto the consumer, and you have called the consumer a complaining monster in previous correspondence. So we've had that in previous instances before. So refrain from any allegations or slander or assumption at all points. Okay, so the structure, you need to remember that at one point you have been a complainant in your life. Our audience influences our choice of vocabulary, sentence structure, and even the content of what we write. So answering a complaint versus a news email or a fun email to a friend. Bear in mind that you, at some point, like I said, have been a complainant as well, or will be a complainant. So keep that in the back of your mind as you are responding to your complainant. Another point to be taken into consideration is our attitude. Be careful of either being too timid or too aggressive. Being timid or hesitant is often communicated through overuse of words and phrases like probably, it appears that, to some extent, or perhaps, or when you're dealing with a verbal complaint, using the word or just repetitive use of words can often appear hesitant and give the consumer or your complainant another aspect to the complaint, that you are not in control of the complaint. So touching on the open paragraph or the particulars of claim, this is a shortened version stating what you are responding or reporting on, and any descriptive as to where the incident originates to help identify the event. So this just puts the reader, or if it goes to a third party, it puts them in the picture as to what went on. And the continued paragraphs, which is your body paragraphs, you need to address the concerns in the complaint. As I said earlier, do not go onto other options, stick to facts, and refrain from deviating. So simply, if you're not with all of the facts, do not ignore the complaint. Simply notify them that you have received the complaint and shall revert as soon as possible. So it's best to give them an extended time frame, but do not leave the complaint to fester, because like I said, that snowball effect will come into play, and then you've got a bigger problem on your hands. So in the body paragraphs, you're going to state facts and support where possible with photos and evidence. So photos, references to standards, or any other evidence that you may have, or in terms of references that you may have to support your statements. When statements or allegations are made, you need to confirm or deny them and follow up with supporting information. Failure to deny a statement may lead to automatic admission. That's from a legal standpoint, and can also be applied in the general response to complaints. So deal with it, deny it. If you don't want to further reiterate on it, then just deny the fact and then move on from there. But do not leave it as open-ended tether. Ignore all slander and do not address this at all. There's a saying, what Susie says of Sally says more of Susie than Sally. So like I saw a photo the other day, there was a photo of Rhino putting single one of his images, there was a rhino horn, because that's what he saw. So our action is up to us, and we need to make sure that we are very careful not to address and not to be involved in the slander, because it will continue. If, however, there is an allegation such as he's not qualified, you can address this in a soft approach, that you confirm that you are a professional, licensed plumber, registered plumber, registered with or a member of XYZ organization, obviously not necessarily just for plumbers. You can deny it with a soft approach and put that to bed. The tense and multiples, when writing, ensure if you are referring by first name, you continue. If you are speaking in past tense, continue to do so. The reader should not have to refer and try and figure out and interpret your document or your response. So if you're going to refer to Joe Blogs as Joe, then you need to refer to him in the entire document or the entire sentiment as Joe. Referring to him as Mr. Blog will confuse your writer, and they'll have to page back, and that ends it in a big mess. Simplicity. Using extremely articulate or industry-specific words will cause confusion to a layperson, and that's also covered in the CPA as well. A report should be clear and understandable. So you need to make sure that it's simplistic in order you are getting your point across and not being confusing and vague. Tact and diplomacy is the art of stating fact and opinion in such a way that the feelings of the recipient are spared, especially if you are advising the client that you are not resolving their complaint to their satisfaction. So they have their expectation coming into this complaint, old Mercedes, and you are now tactfully and diplomatically telling them, look, no gold Mercedes en route. In conclusion, paragraphs, I think this is the last one we're going to touch on now. Summarize your response and provide the outcomes or resolutions to go forward. Do remember not to admit, not overpromise, but the more negotiable you are, the greater chance of resolving the complaint without a retort. So make sure that you are clear, ending with sincerity rather than repetitive disclaimer style endings also softens the reader, especially if they are not getting their desired outcome. So you're going to summarize and give them the resolutions, and you're going to be sincere. You're not going to do a copy and paste. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great day. Put a bit of personal touch into that.